like to call the November 12th, 2019 meeting of the Town of Concord Planning Board to order. This meeting is being videotaped, and you may also make your own recording if you choose, but if so, let us know so that we can make arrangements so that there's no disruptions. So our first item tonight is an approval not required plan for the Concord Free. Oh, what? Oh, sorry. I just went right here. Okay. Which is 159 Sudbury Road, the Thoreau Depot zoning boundary amendment discussion relating to this property that we have highlighted right here. Okay, so do we have?
Yes, good evening, board members. For the record, my name is Thomas Falwell. I'm Grandma Coleman's in Newbury at 9 Davidville Square in Concord. With me is Fred Margolis, who is the president and founder of the Growth Companies and also the manager of Killer Bees LLC, which is the record owner of the property. We've given you a project narrative and you have some plans and other illustrations and photographs, but by way of a brief summary before I turn it over to Fred, over a year ago, I would say, more than a year ago perhaps, we met with Elizabeth and Fred and his team at the Growth Companies to discuss this property and what could possibly be done to sort of reconfigure the site to make it work a bit better than from a traffic and safety standpoint. As we know, it's should we say maybe not a little bit less than ideal circumstance relative to the traffic in and out of the site from the single entrance. So those discussions kicked off a series of meetings with Elizabeth and meetings that Fred had with his design team, and also began to engage in some discussions with the MBTA about acquiring an easement from them that would allow us to do what you'll see tonight. Part of which involves a reconfiguration of the lots. They're all of the 159s in common ownership with the residential structure that's to the southeast as you're looking at the plan where the circle goes through. And so it would involve reconfiguration of those lots and a request to rezone the reconfigured 159 lot to the Concord, to extend that Concord Thoreau Business District zone to cover the entire lot, which would allow us to do make the improvements that we didn't make for a better and more user-friendly and traffic-friendly situation. So with that, I'll turn it over to Fred to take you through the photographs and some of the plans, the existing condition plans and the proposed plans, and then we're happy to answer any questions and hope that when we're through, you'll support us in the seeking to rezone that property to allow this to happen. So with that, I'll turn it over to Fred Margolis.
Good evening. Like Tom said, about 2 years ago, we bought the two properties, the one that had Starbucks and the dry cleaner, and this house that's a two-family. The lot line goes over to about here. And okay. So right now,
It's a laser pointer. So it's a laser pointer? If you press the button on the top of the pen, don't look at it, but it's that button right there.
no, never done that. So that's the driveway in and out of Starbucks now. It's a two-way drive. You can see the sidewalk, the crosswalk rather, the stop bar is there. And so when the cars exit out of the site, they don't have any room to queue up. And it creates really a dangerous situation.
They're not allowed to turn left.
There's a sign there that says you can't turn left, right?
Don't get me started. Go ahead. Continue.
I've seen people try to do it.
Yes, I'm just saying.
And if they don't turn left, then they're gonna turn right and go into somebody's driveway and try and turn
Right.
around if they wanna go left. So in any event, it's a bad situation. the second thing is, that Starbucks building, it's about, 3,000 square feet. Starbucks is roughly 2,000, the Taylor Dry Cleaner is 1,000, and there's a second floor in the building. And the prior owner, built an apartment on the second floor. And from what I understand, he lived there until the building inspector came along and said, you only have enough parking for the first floor uses. You need 2 spaces for the second floor, number one. Number two, there's no second means of egress. So he made the prior owner move out and decommission the unit by taking out the kitchen and the bathroom. So second floor is vacant right now. The 2-family we have rented. It's a 1-bedroom on the first floor and 2-bedroom on the second floor. So, it's just easier for me to put it.
It's fine.
So what happens is the lot line, so if I get this straight, the zone line is right about here. And the lot line is right about here. And when, I guess this was a gas station years ago, and
Fred, can I ask you to stand, this is being recorded, so if you stand just a little bit off to the side more.
Sure. So, anyway, so the zone line is right about here, and the lot line is right about here. And when the former owner got permission to build the Starbucks building, he was able to how does that work?
We've got a special permit site plan approval to extend, as allowed by the bylaw, the business use 22 feet into the
22 feet.
residential zone. That's why, so it straddles the zone line now, but exists by virtue of a 1980-ish special permit.
And so what, we want to extend that zone line to the lot line?
Yeah, well, what we want to do, and Elizabeth will show you the plan, is to reconfigure the lots so that we, and that's, I think that's, is that the plan there?
Well, yeah, so if you wanna, go directly to that, okay. So, we have a plan there of existing conditions, it's, the survey plan. That's probably better. So those are the existing conditions. So you can see where that, zone line is, which is the dashed line over here, and the lot line, or that's the special permit line rather, and that's the lot line. And this is the 2-way in and out, like you said, it's currently, there's a sign there that says right turn only. So what we propose to do is to build a driveway that goes around the back here. There's a garage here for that 2-family, so we propose to knock that down, make this a 1-way in, build a driveway around the back, add 6 spaces over here, and so it'd be 1-way in, 1-way out, and now you'd be able to queue 8 cars up to the stop bar. Then build a replacement driveway here. Right now, the parking for the house is through via a 2-way drive here, and there's this parking lot which the garage doesn't get used apparently, it's really dilapidated. So the residents of the 2-family park in this lot, and then sometimes other people who can't get a space over there park here, and it's sort of a free-for-all. So the idea is to build a replacement driveway here, which you'll see in the next plan. So we went to the MTA, I guess if you go to the proposed conditions plan, you can see what I'm talking about. Here's the start.
Yeah, just give me a second.
Here's the Starbucks building. And now this would be 1-way in, this parking field would stay the same. We'd relocate the dumpster from here over to here. This is the lot line. So we went to the MTA and said, can you give us an easement for this 835 square feet? And it took about a year and a half, and finally they said yes. Cost $25,000 one time. So then the idea is to build this driveway around the back here, and have 6 spaces over here, and then another driveway over here with 1 space here and 3 spaces there, and a fence along here, and according to the code, a fence along here with landscaping. These additional 6 spaces will give us more parking for the building, obviously, and it'll give us the 2 spaces, more than the 2 spaces that we need to be able to, recommission that second floor 2-bedroom apartment and rent that out. We would add a second means of egress over here or over here. We haven't, not sure about that yet. Right now, the front door to that apartment is here in between the 2 stores, which is sort of a little awkward for a potential resident. So we're thinking that maybe we put the staircase over here, and that would be the entry to the unit, and then what's currently the entry to the unit would be second means of egress, in any event. So, what we need to do is move that zone line from here to here in order to be able to do that, because currently the 22 feet is to right here.
Yeah, the 22
Does that
feet,
work?
the 22 feet is basically where you can see on the prior plan, the building extends into the residential lot. Part of the plan is that we do an A&R plan to reconfigure those 2 lots into one being, would be just for the residents, and the larger lot would contain the entire business use on it.
So we'll move the lot line from here to there,
Right.
to what is now the special permit line. And then the whole lot will be in this
Is that
business
their own
district.
business district entirely?
And that's the idea. And then, so we're asking you to support this extension of the zone, 22 feet. And then we would have to go to the planning board for site plan approval to be able to construct this. And at that time, we'd kind of engineer the plan more fully and kind of get into the weeds, so to speak, with drainage and that kind of thing. But if you, Elizabeth, if you want to show the other, got some photographs that yeah. So that is, actually, if you go back to that aerial, please, that you first had up. The green box is roughly the area of this 835 square foot easement that we've arranged with the MTA. So then if you go to the other plans that say scroll through the Photoshop in the file. So that's roughly where the easement we'd have to take out these trees to, and then if you go to the next plan, and then the next one. So now that's showing, well, maybe the next one would be better. Yeah, okay. So like I said, we'd move the dumpster over to the right and build this road 12 feet wide around the back of the building. There's just not quite enough room to put a driveway in between the end of the building and the current lot line. So that's the easement area, and then if you go to the next one. So that's, you're standing in the 12 space parking lot, looking toward the 2-family. This is the new driveway. Then the next one, that's looking from the other direction. In other words, the cars would be coming toward you. And I think that's it, isn't it?
And I would say in our initial discussions, the first meeting we had with Elizabeth, the traffic safety officer, was here, was with us, and was quite enthusiastic about the prospect of solving this problem. So a year and a half later, we got it to the point where we have a proposal, and again, we'd look to the board to be the sponsor of the article to rezone that required portion of the reconfigured 159 to allow this to happen. Do you have any questions we might be able to answer?
I do, but I didn't know if I want, yeah, let others start. Go ahead.
Can you go back to the proposal drawings? Well, I see the 3 spots in the back you mentioned. What is happening in the front yard there, is that another turnaround in the front?
That's just parking space.
Right here?
So there's 4 parking spaces
Yeah,
being
right.
added.
Now, Elizabeth said that we need to have I think that's how that happened. She said we need to have 4 spaces for these 2 units. We'd be fine not putting a space there and letting, if these people need more parking, they can park there. And then there's that little garage over here. Like I said, it's kind of fallen down, but of course we removed that. But this, here's the stop bar, and that's the crosswalks right here. And so you can see that we're moving in this proposal, we're moving the center of the driveway 169 feet further away from the intersection, because currently from the center of drive to the stop bar is about 8 feet. And it's the police say it's it's a real
It's a problem.
conflict.
Yeah.
And so, like Tom said, the police were enthusiastic about this reconfiguration.
So
Yeah,
because,
Burton?
so because it's a 2-family, do we need those 4 spots, 2 spots?
The zoning
Per
bylaw
unit.
requires 2 spaces per dwelling unit.
Yeah.
Right, but,
Isn't that like a 4th one, kinda?
That's the turnaround, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
That's-
that's as they say, that's the hammerhead over here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when you're in this spot, you back out to get out.
now, but I think that they could get relief from parking, right?
When that part comes up, you mean?
For that, so that they would only need 3 space, I mean, we could, or they would have to apply for it, but,
Well, yeah, if you'd waive the requirement for that space, we'd be happy with that.
yeah, I'm just trying to think of the mechanism for
Only
that.
the zoning board of appeals can grant relief.
Yeah, but wouldn't they'd have to apply.
Yes.
And so what we're just saying is you could apply for relief from the parking.
So what sort of buffer would there be then afterwards between the back part and the train?
That,
Which area?
yeah, so
Over here?
that's yet to be determined, that would be part of their site plan approval.
Oh, okay.
So right now, the
We should
focus
figure out the
is, we're
level.
talking about this requires a town meeting warrant article
Okay.
to extend the
Mm.
Thoreau Depot Business Zoning District is what they're proposing and requesting of the planning board.
Just the grade slopes up here, as you can see. So there'd be a little concrete knee wall here anyway. And we're proposing a fence on top, a little fence on top of that.
Couple questions. Would this allow you to do your deliveries any differently, or the Starbucks tenant do their deliveries any differently?
Yeah, you know, I mean, the reality is, my understanding is right now all the deliveries happen out on the street.
They are,
Yes,
Truck
they
right
do.
on
parks-
Thoreau.
Truck parks over here somewhere, I saw it on Google Maps.
Yeah.
And, so this way the truck would be able to, the problem is truck can't get out once it gets in. there.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
So the truck, that's
That's
12
not the
feet
problem.
wide, so the truck would be,
Wouldn't
we made the radius large enough for a box truck to get through there and park over here and then be able to get out.
Yeah, though there might be conflict of a delivery vehicle coming there and taking up that space with those parking spaces. But I think those delivery trucks are a really big problem for traffic. And I think that I would like to try to solve a couple problems here in one go. And if we were looking at allowing this, I'd like to see whether it could be an opportunity to require times of delivery for the tenants there. And I don't know if that, because we're not looking at a permit that specifically applies to the tenant, would that be germane to talk about requiring tenants to have particular delivery hours, like delivering, not during rush hour?
So, once again, that would be part of your site plan review discussion.
Okay, well, but I
Yeah,
guess I
that's
would,
similar
whether
to-
I would consider looking to do this would be if that would be something we could do at that time.
We
You've discussed that and conditioned projects before on delivery times.
Okay.
Like I said, after the zone change, then we'd have to come back to planning for site plan approval and.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure if that site plan approval, that would be germane to that discussion, but it sounds like it would be. So then I would just had a little trouble following the moving lines between the special permit line, the lot line, and the zoning district. Can you net it out? How much further is this zoning district moving from what's allowed today under the special permit? I guess it would be. Is that expanding or is that just
20 feet?
Yeah, I was gonna say 20 feet or so.
Yeah.
Because we're already 22 feet out of
it is moving?
It is moving.
Yeah.
Okay. And so have you gotten a chance to get input from neighbors? Because oftentimes,
No.
or, no,
No, we have not.
because we've seen in another case of looking to expand or change a business district, it's immediately adjacent to a residential district.
Well, we're the
Concerns.
direct abutter to the.
They own the property.
You're the direct abutter to that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But what I'm talking about
Oh,
is
this
that,
abutter.
that ultimately the business district is expanding towards residences.
Right.
So I would be very curious to get the input of residents that are in the immediate area.
It's particularly the case here because there's a knock-on effect that you're proposing a driveway on the far side of the residence that also, as far as I can tell, is going to take down a whole bunch of trees.
It's fairly heavily wooded, I think, on both sides, at present.
Yeah, so that's going to trigger the tree preservation bylaw. So and I don't know if you have any place to put new trees, so you
I'm not sure it would because
I don't
there's no
think it would.
construction on the building.
We're not doing any construction
on that building.
Right.
For this residential.
It's really something because, I mean, it's as a consequence of all this work that it's happening.
But it's not connected to.
Uh-huh. And it's, But I think that it's still, with relation to the comment you just made,
Yeah.
I think it is an impact on the neighbors to have all the tree cover going out and replaced with a drive.
Yeah, and
Well, again, there is a fairly significant buffer that exists there now on
the other
the
property.
neighbor's side of the property.
Uh-huh.
So I don't think.
That may mitigate it.
Well, I don't think there's gonna be much visual impact on them to the extent that it is heavily wooded now.
And it may not, and there may be no concerns, but what I wouldn't, and it, to me, this, I think, wow, this solves a problem that I've seen firsthand, and that would be great if it solves those problems. I think a lot of people would appreciate that, but I wouldn't want to stand up at town meeting if I got assigned and have to speak to this article and then find out at that point that there were neighbors that were very deeply concerned about it. So I'm just asking for that input.
We would certainly engage them in a conversation before, I mean, first we gotta get over this hurdle in terms of the potential of getting, supporting the zoning article, but clearly we would have a discussion with the neighbor, not so they weren't blindsided by what the proposal is.
Did notices of this meeting go out that that would have gone to those neighbors?
Not
No?
at this time, no.
because this doesn't
I mean, they
this
get notice
doesn't
of the.
assure that that is going to happen.
Yeah.
During
Okay.
the
It's a
site
separate.
plan.
Yeah, they would
review
get notice of
process.
that, but we would do some labor and missionary work with them in advance, so that, to the extent that they had concerns that we could somehow address, mitigate, certainly willing to consider those, but I don't think there's gonna be any, but we would certainly have that conversation with them, you know,
So
prior
if-
to that.
Of course, it is, on one side, it's a main street, and on the other side, it's an active railroad track, so it's not like we're in a subdivision in the woods.
Yeah, well, the other example I think about this is immediately adjacent to the busy downtown, but people are concerned about that, the potential down the road for changing the uses that are slightly closer to their houses. I mean, they're the people that live there, so they might see the issue that you and I wouldn't, right? So,
Actually, the only use
just
is gonna be closer to the house is the new drive,
I
the
think that's
building's
the
not.
house. I think they put the driveway there.
So
Yeah, so
if
like
this is something
neighbors
that
trees
the board is in general, favor, but understanding there are, you know, issues with the direct abutters, you can continue this to, you know, your next meeting and have the applicant, go speak with the direct abutter and come back in 2 weeks with, input from the direct abutter.
I mean, I think they're separable issues, we have to deal with it relative to the site plan.
But you're asking the board to put forth a warrant article with a known impact to a direct abutter, and I think it's,
And-
your due diligence to at least approach that abutter
Okay.
with the proposal before the board is being asked to put something forth to town meeting.
But in the meantime, we could draft a bylaw language, right?
The bylaw language, the bylaws, there's no, changing
Just
the language of the
Or,
bylaws,
I mean,
changing
the
the map.
warrant
Map
article
change.
language.
Yeah, the warrant article is just
Pretty
changing the
simple.
map. Yep.
It's actually more than the map change, because we've got to, no, I guess it isn't, we've got to do the A and R plan, but
It's
still,
just
it's
a map
just a map
change.
change.
I'm just, and I'm about to run out to the next meeting, but I like that approach. This seems like something that I would support, that, I mean, depending on some of the details of that site plan at a, you know, that will
Later
be
date,
considered
yeah.
later, because it solves a problem that I know that the town wants to solve. But I also, I mean, we've had that experience where we wander into moving a business district and we discover there's a 50-year history.
Yeah.
That's
Right,
the other
and I'm
question.
not saying that's your circumstance here, but I'd wanna just, I think it's.
Well,
behooves
we
us to
also have
get that
time.
input. Yeah,
We have time to do that, I think.
Is there any history on kind of why that business district line was there? I imagine the building used to be smaller or something, and that's why.
No, it's just,
No, I bet you it probably is a particular distance from the, you know, let's say,
Oh, okay.
400 feet, I mean,
Okay.
I think that's how
Yeah.
the lines were once drawn, was the distance from.
And it used to be a gas station.
so
Okay.
it was a little further. up.
Okay, so it's good. So there's not like there was a distance that we're trying to
no.
not change. Okay.
Okay, does that, I think that concludes this discussion for tonight.
Well, can I just
Oh,
add one
yeah.
thing? I just want to commend the applicant for doing this, and it's really not easy to get rights from the MBTA. That's kind of an arduous process, and 18 months is like not even that bad. So you guys did a good job.
Well, we've got a pretty good relationship with the MTA. Right now, for instance, we're doing a major historical renovation on the Newton Center train station that was built in 1893. And it's directly adjacent to electrified train tracks, and so we worked with the MTA for close to 3 years to get approvals to put up staging, and we've already demolished we've removed the old slate roof and all the copper trim and all the windows and wood trim, and we're in the process of rebuilding it. It's a $650,000 project, with the T is paying a third of it. And so we've done other things with the MTA like this. So yeah, I think 18 months was, initially they said no. And our easement area was 1,600 feet. And then we redesigned it and got it down to 1,200, and we redesigned it, got it down to 835, and then kind of went up the food chain, and finally they said okay. It was pretty difficult.
So I think this is great, and I think moving the zoning line makes perfect sense. I think like we can do some more due diligence about the neighbor, but we're moving it basically to the other side of what's a well-developed parking lot, and a driveway, and we're also kind of making a better fix, like by moving it appropriately instead of like fixing it by special permit. So I'm fully supportive of.
And I
that.
assume the traffic safety officer is fine with the left turn coming out of it that far away from the intersection?
Yeah, I was gonna ask that too. Is it left turn's gonna be allowed now or no?
Both the police chief and fire chief are in support of the proposal.
Okay, and with a left turn allowed?
Yeah, so what doesn't, show on this plan, is that this curb radius would also be extended out, so that, and with this appropriate signage, that this is no, no exit.
Mm-hmm.
You wanna tighten up that
And-
curb cut.
Yeah.
And just more than parenthetically, one of my guys, the sort of director of facilities, lived in the two-family house for about a year when we first bought the property. He lived on the second floor. This guy's name is Wally Bruce. Wally tried to meet the people next door. He said he's never seen them. When we started with this design process, he went over there and knocked on the door a couple of times. Couldn't contact anybody. Now, we haven't sent them a letter. We haven't left a note on the door or anything like that, but we have made an effort a few times to contact an occupant. But we'll try harder.
And I also just want to know, we're getting another little apartment, which is great. So I think if you could continue to rent out, because we need rental, and so it just seems like it's just
Yeah,
a good,
aligning with
it's a good
affordable,
process.
Smart
you know,
zoning.
two-bed.
Yeah, and I would encourage trying to work with 3 spots and apply for a
Yeah.
relief from parking, because, one big concern that we hear is just, impervious surface everywhere, and especially in tight lots. This is becoming tighter as a result of the lot line movement.
We'd rather leave that grass.
Yeah,
You know. I mean, at the very least, it'll be, crushed stone.
yeah. Well, let's see if we can get rid of
Or
it
the,
altogether.
the pavers that the grass grows through.
Yeah. Okay. All right, then, thanks.
Thank you.
So do we have a particular date, Elizabeth, that we?
The next meeting is November 26th.
Do you want us to come or just submit a letter of,
Yeah, submit a
Yeah, I think a letter's fine, as long as it speaks to this
Correct.
point. Yeah,
We'll reach out for them,
Yeah.
based upon what Fred described as the past experience of trying to make contact. I don't even know if it's owner occupied, actually.
there must be some way to contact these people.
we'll track them
Yeah.
down.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So now we'll move to the approval not required plan of the Concord Free Public Library, 129 and 151 Main Street.
So the A&R plan is just to remove the lot line between 129 and 151 Main Street.
Does anybody have their agenda memo
To
handy?
combine the 2 lots.
Okay.
Right, so there's the former house and the library, and they're just taking that in.
Still a house.
Well,
Oh, there it is. So this is the current lot line right here.
Yeah.
And so this is just being removed and the whole lot is being combined.
I've got one.
all right, take a motion.
I'd like to move to endorse the plan for the Concord Free Public Library at 129 and 151 Main Street, dated November 1st, 2019, by Stansky and McNary, Inc., as approval not required, because the plan is not a subdivision, because every lot shown in the plan has at least 125 feet of frontage as required by the Concord zoning bylaw, and every lot has frontage on a public way, and to authorize the chair, clerk, or town planner to endorse the plan.
Second.
Okay, and any discussion? All right, all in favor? Okay, passes unanimously. All right, on to the next, which is November 21st. So a week from Thursday?
Yes.
And is everybody available? Can we all make it?
I can,
TBD.
I'm not sure.
but, oh, to be determined.
Huh?
Yeah, I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, I'm not
Okay.
sure also.
Oh, because we'd love to have all hands on deck, and you'll see with the proposal here why. So basically, we have the opportunity to get our zoning initiatives in front of the public and in front of the other town boards and committees at this event. And how I'd like to organize it is to give an initial presentation that just gives an overview for about half an hour, then break up into 4 breakout sessions, one in each corner of the room potentially. This is going to be at the town hearing room, down in the townhouse, and one for each of these initiatives. So, for PRDs, for accessory dwellings, for 2 families, and for Throw Depot, and have 2 people at each station and have kind of the more detailed drill down into each of those initiatives there. And people would go and they'd spend, I think 17 minutes is actually the number, at each of these sessions, going through that and getting feedback. Okay, and then we'd make a general alarm, and people would get up and they would move and they'd do a second one for the same amount of time. Giving 3 minutes for moving around. Okay, and then after 17 more minutes, we'd call time. We'd come back together, and then the representative of our board would go through in 5 minutes the feedback they got on each of the 4 things. Okay, so that I hope would kind of give people a chance, for the ones that they're interested in, to get enough detail. They're interactive, and I don't know if I'd call it fun, but hopefully, more entertaining than just sitting in the room and hearing us talk at them. So, that's why it would be great if we had 2 people at each of those stations. And I kind of said, okay, there's 7 of us, press Elizabeth in as the 8th. And then I just suggested some assignments just based upon the interest or prior assignments that we've had. And so I don't know, of course, if people object, then feel free to swap with others, but, that's just the idea. So.
I like it. Tell me again, this is gonna be, the people who are attending are from boards and general
And the public.
Okay,
I mean, we had originally thought that we might have a meeting where we just got the boards in and did it, but that it's impossible to arrange all that.
but do we think there's gonna be other board attendance?
So they have, the only 2 boards that meet that night are HDC and the Ag Commission.
Okay.
So I figure
So it's an open night, they're
it's
aware
an
of
open
it.
night. They've all been personally invited by
Great.
email.
Okay.
Yeah.
Through the, chair or the, town staff.
So,
I love the idea. The only concern I have, and it's certainly not to not do this, is that acoustics in that room are so terrible. I can't imagine 4 groups talking. It's like Bryson,
So they did do this for the 2229 Main Street.
and it worked out okay.
Starnet, and they have like movable partitions
Oh,
that they kind of set up to help
oh, well, that's
dampen
good.
it. So, Marcia ran that meeting. She said it was doable.
that's great. I think that would be a good addition.
There currently isn't any other place that's going to have anything better.
Okay.
The town really does not have high-end meeting space anywhere.
What about Harvey Wheeler?
It's not available.
And I remember one of these things got done in the Welch's building.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that was a nice space. That was a really nice space, but
But
I don't know
Marcia
how that
also
happened.
said, so you can have like 3 in the hearing room and 1 in the selectmen's.
oh, well, that
If
would
we
be
need
nice.
to, yeah.
Okay,
So
yeah,
that kind of cuts it down in half as well,
yeah.
or a quarter. So.
I want mine to be in the select board room.
You
It
both together,
feels
I
kind of
feel like you-
special. Sit around the table.
I mean, I kind of expect a lot of people coming for the PRD.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, well then maybe your PRD people get your room. Actually, it's 2 different ones. Well, no, the PRD would get twice in the same. Yep.
How I don't want to be by myself in a room with talking about
I'm sorry.
How are we noticing this to the public? How are we getting the word out to the public?
So there's already a save the date little poster, and that I think has been posted in a couple different places.
I got an email with the news and notification for the
Oh, you
town.
did?
Well, you have to sign up for it. Like
On the town.
town website.
For like general town news or something?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
I think I saw like a sign up in West Concord.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yep. The sandwich board sign is up at Monument Square. It's up in
Oh my
Junction
goodness.
Park.
I've been under a
It's
rock.
gone
Okay.
out, news and notices.
Yeah.
It'll.
Oh, what a nice poster.
Thank you. I'm so not artistic.
No,
so-
it's I like this. It
It's
reminds
a
me of
clean
Martha's
design.
Vineyard.
I
The
think it's
Free
nice.
free clip art is wonderful.
Our panda.
And so news and notices, and then it will come out in the paper. I don't know if she made it for this Thursday, but it'll be next Thursday. But I'm not sure if she made it for this Thursday. Okay.
So the most urgent thing is that I mean, certainly feel free to give feedback on the overview presentation, but for each of the breakouts, you need to have some sort of FAQ content, and some means to kind of gather feedback. So I have proposed some things in each of these areas, but it's just a starter point. And so I'd suggest, and we won't be meeting again before this, so it's really about you working with your counterpart to get what you want to have there.
And I think it would also
Yeah.
be helpful to figure out like what are we hoping. I mean, I know we're trying to get general feedback, but are there certain points that we really would like to hear about during these times that we're going to reflect back in the review?
Absolutely, that's
Yes.
what we're really about with each of these, right? So what happened was I originally had a presentation I gave to the League of Women Voters. Was it last month or the month before? And then, there's been some things that have happened since then, and I've expanded the content, and then I just sliced parts of it off and threw it into these each of these areas.
I like this slide a lot.
And I actually
what's
did
happened,
pick
but-
that the area was proportional. It actually is proportional to the difference.
Nice.
Wait, say that again?
That I mean that is the number of
250.
pixels in
Oh,
that
oh, I
thing
see, I see.
relative to that
It's to
are
scale, sorry.
this is 250% bigger than that rectangle.
It's amazing.
And that's really how it looks. So yeah, I mean like.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the
I
visual
feel so
effect.
Yes.
PowerPoint inadequate.
But I was curious, like, do you feel like the changes that we're proposing are addressing this problem?
No, this is not specifically about tear downs themselves, although it is giving people options to deal with their current buildings, something other than just tearing it down and building a big thing, right? They could build an accessory dwelling into their, they have other alternatives to tearing down. But really what it's trying to say is, that right now, what's happening is this mansionization, and we're trying to provide less expensive options.
And when we
Because
say
with
less expensive,
mansionization, affordable housing is more affordable housing is disappearing.
Right.
That was the point that previous slide was trying to make it.
Right.
Okay, and so now we need to compensate by creating something that's more
Okay,
affordable
thank you.
options.
That's
And- and-
interesting. Okay.
and more affordable. I think the only translation we have is smaller, right? Less square feet, because it's all about cost per square foot.
Yeah, we're not about subsidizing space here with
Right.
these initiatives.
So that's why they're specifically calling out. Well, for the two family and two family doesn't necessarily have to be smaller,
So
It doesn't.
but the
do you want-
accessory dwelling.
Should I go
like,
through it?
Well, I mean,
Sure.
just very quickly, I don't,
Yeah.
I mean,
Sure, because the next slide kind of gives, the previous, is it, what happened to the slide with the,
Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on.
Why does the agenda just have 2 breakouts? I thought there was 4.
no,
Well,
there's
two
4
rounds.
things that you can choose among, but
Oh.
each person
You
only
can-
goes to 2
So
of
you
the
don't
4.
have to pick just one. You can give
I didn't
input
eat my
on.
spinach today. All right, keep going.
Okay. So why are we doing this? Because we need better options. Okay, and then we're trying to provide less expensive options, what we call moderately affordable housing.
Wait, are we commenting on this as we go through?
Sure, you
On
can.
the first slide,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, no, it's the fourth slide. Thanks. This, I think we should specifically reference the plan,
The long range plan?
the long range plan, like as it was really
Okay,
strongly called
Concord's future needs, comma, align with the long range plan.
for. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
so it's clear
Can
that
we-
you know, I think that's so important.
Do you want
Do you want me to submit?
Yeah, or
Do this?
I don't think I can probably make all the changes, and I don't actually even have anything to write with, so.
Well, I don't think Nancy actually loaded the PowerPoint
In alignment.
on here.
with
Yeah, okay.
Concord's long range plan.
Yeah,
Yeah,
all I
okay.
just need is a prompt. I'll
Yeah.
wordsmith it.
Like
Then we're not
the future
tying
needs
ourselves
as
directly to it, but making reference.
right, like who established what the future needs are.
Exactly.
Well, it was this amazing
Yeah.
process that was like really inclusive and
Yeah, okay.
I
I think that's a good point.
point.
Okay, so can we go? So that's what's happening right now, and that's resulting in a lot of these lower price units not being available. So we need to do something else. Okay, so what are we going to do? We're trying to bridge what we call this missing middle between what's affordable housing, where it fits in the state subsidized housing inventory, and market rate housing, current market rate housing in Concord. So then you go to the next slide.
Can I just,
Yeah.
maybe this slide answers it. I was just asking like, what is the definition of, or what is that price point?
Yeah, so this
There you go.
is that
Got it.
answer.
I love it.
So subsidized housing inventory is for a family of four. This is all just for, it varies with family size, but for a family of four, it's a $340,000 home. Now that family of four could be making up to $90,000. Okay. Meanwhile, though, the median home in Concord is 1 million plus. Okay, and that requires, following the same rubric of 30% of your income devoted to housing, family income of $235,000. Okay, so what we're talking about is the space in between. And we already in Concord have this notion of what we call moderate affordable housing, where there are some subsidies provided and there's some provision in our bylaw to create moderate affordable units. And those are ones that are below that 150% of median household income. So a $158,000 thing or a $100,000 home, approximately. Really, this area in between, there is almost nothing out there other than condos. For homes, there's not much in this space with this triangle. Okay, so this is the space we're trying to fill in with more housing opportunity.
We're not really though, are we? I mean, I think we're doing accessory dwellings for like an in-law. We're not for like a 4-person family that needs a moderately affordable place to live.
Well, and
the
I
most
agree
part.
that this is showing family of four as a reference, but it's true. You can scale this down to family of, for a household size of 1, the numbers shift to the left.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just thinking like when I guess.
I mean, yeah,
This seems to be teeing us up for like us solving the problem of teardowns. which
So
is
you're
a great
saying,
slide.
and
I mean,
by the way, I think that what was kind of leading me in this direction was when Liz Rush came and presented to us, she used family of 4 numbers as a point of reference.
Mm-hmm.
It is true that we could try to use a smaller average household size because some of the initiatives, accessory dwellings, go to that, but 2 families doesn't. 2 families, family of
That's
4
true.
would be
That's true.
appropriate.
Yeah. That's
Okay,
true.
PRDs, they're not. So.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, thanks. Did you create the graphics?
Yeah.
This is great. It's a great slide.
I'm a PowerPoint.
Clearly.
That's what I have to do at
Clearly.
work. Okay, so then, the other thing though that we're doing in context of all this is trying to protect neighborhood character. So that means we're not going to have these new housing types exceed our existing dimensional requirements. It's supposed to look like the neighborhood and leverage our existing building types where we can. And then if there is a problem, have special permits that would prevent disruption, where we see there being a risk. Okay?
I think we often use preserve neighborhood character. I mean, protect seems
Okay,
a
you
bit
think
strong.
preserve is better than protect,
I
okay,
feel like that might
That's
be
a
what
good
we used.
catch,
Yeah, that's work.
okay. Then, so what are we proposing? We have these 4 initiatives that apply to different subsets of the town. And, you know, then I was just gonna march through each of them. So accessory dwelling unit, that's what all the terms are. 2 family, that's what all the terms are for that. Then PRDs, well, we're a little more vague here so far. We don't have a concrete thing, but maybe after tonight we will.
Can I just
To-
touch on one thing before you go too
Yeah.
far? So on that a couple slides before where we have like the keep going, right here. So for the PRDs, we're not talking here about the average home or like that slide about what the price point is that we're trying to
Well,
encourage.
Though PRDs tend to have smaller units than,
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think
Yeah.
like I fully expect every single person at this event to say, well, why isn't Main Street like hitting this price point? Like that PRD is not expected
well, it's
to
still
solve.
below that median home price in theory.
No.
No?
We don't know yet.
1.025?
Well, they said that their starting prices were going to be like 800 or
Right. So it's still under that corner of the
okay,
triangle.
okay.
I don't know. I mean,
But you're right.
I'm just saying the question is coming all night long.
oh yeah, sure. Okay, then
For PRDs, aren't we tying it to special permit so that they have to go through that?
the PRD has a special permit process
No,
for sure.
but there's a special checklist that they're not gonna be required to do
Site
that to go
plan.
through. Sorry, site plan review,
Site plan review.
right?
Yeah.
Where it's like about sustainability.
Oh, okay,
efficiency,
that's
energy
true. We
efficiency
need
and
to
all
have a
that.
second bullet here that says add site plan review. Good catch. Good catch. Yeah. Okay.
Would the open space requirements be part of the site plan review? Or that's
No,
that's
that's still
its own
part of the
criteria?
PRD.
Okay.
Did you also wanna add, I think, and this all starts because the one meeting I missed, I think the planning board was in support of having PRDs be through the planning board as a special permit and not the Board of Appeals? Or was it going to stay with the Board of Appeals? I know Hammerhead Lots,
No.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, but I think we were okay with that too. Yeah. I mean, I thought that the ZBA was okay with that,
oh
right?
yeah, they're fine with the planning
Yeah,
board
then I
taking
think
over
that
PRDs.
we're okay with
That's
that.
funny, I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
So that might be another bullet.
Okay.
You could.
Cause that addresses the like sustainability point, which otherwise is not
Right.
addressed. The site.
You can
Site plan
combine
review.
those two about enough space is provided and space is usable to make sure that, if it's a usable space, that might intimate that it's enough.
And I think
If you
Nancy
need
might
space.
have printed the wrong. I think that she printed the old one and not the new one.
But what we're looking at is the new one?
I don't know, I
Oh,
don't think so. I think
okay.
this is the new one, correct? Matt?
This is the, yeah, I haven't
Yeah,
found anything.
I think Nancy printed the wrong one.
Wait, so
But I
I mean,
mean,
there's
are
subtle
either,
changes.
this or that?
This is the wrong one.
okay,
Okay,
But that's
we'll
right.
look at it, but
You're
this is-
looking at the
yeah.
right one.
Okay.
so there's probably some small edits you've already made.
Yes.
Yeah, but not many. This is pretty darn close. This looks, what's missing here?
Well, see, if you look at this slide, on 12, on this one, you divided it out a little more.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, you're right. Okay. Just character and then okay, and then what's going on at Thoreau Depot, which is of course the least formal of all these.
But yeah, people are gonna wanna understand what that term means and.
Is there a map that shows the area that'll be investigated?
Yes, that's in the breakout.
Right.
That's in the breakout.
Thanks.
Okay.
I thought it was somewhere. Okay.
So now I just was going to wrap up the general presentation by kind of going, and is there anything more? And I was saying, well, or why isn't there anything more? So, things that are general across all the things I wanted to address in the opening presentation. So I talked about, why aren't we doing, for example, 2 families throughout the town, that kind of thing. Okay, then next is physical impacts. So I haven't yet tried to look at the assessor's data to try to come up with the average property tax payment. I feel like we need a lot more here, ideally, but I don't know what. This is kind of like, I kind of want to say, and over to you, Finance Committee.
Yeah, maybe.
This is what are fiscal impacts of all of these initiatives?
No,
Okay, of just the PRD.
but
Well,
not
actually,
PRDs.
here I said we've got limited data, so I only referred
sure
to the
we're all-
PRD
I
data
just
that
make
we've
sure,
got. We
right.
don't have data for 2 families,
Because-
and that's what I was going to say is that when I introduced this, I was going to say, look, all these initiatives could have fiscal impacts. The limited data that we do have is related to PRDs. There's actually relatively few school-aged children in PRDs units. And relative to the property taxes that are paid, it doesn't seem like a big incremental burden on the town, at least at first glance. But that's just that.
I would just quantify that.
And I need to check the 75 out of 89.
Yeah.
I don't think all 89 units were constructed or ready for occupancy. So I think it's actually like 75 out of like 85.
It was an incredible response rate.
Yeah.
I was really impressed.
So I wanna check that.
Because I know that when we kind of threw that survey out there, our expectations were pretty low about whether people would respond.
Well, so this is just the town census. So I gave the town clerk all of the addresses for the non-age restricted PRDs.
But I thought there was also a survey or something.
That's for apartments.
Oh.
We haven't gotten the results back for that.
Oh, okay. Then
Yeah.
I was just misinterpreting. So then okay. So it's not a survey. It's just.
No, it's the town census.
Yeah, okay. So source is the town census. So,
I just think that the title of the slide should be qualified in some way. Because we're addressing what are the fiscal impacts to increase density, is that what you mean? Because you go from the PRD,
well, more generally,
To
what are the
Thoreau
fiscal
Depot.
impacts of all these initiatives collectively? In which, as you can say, as you were, I think, going, they're pretty diverse. Some
Yeah,
of them would
so-
be very different than others.
so I don't know if I don't know that serves you well then. Or maybe,
Or
we're
save
going
it
to
for
be
the breakout.
investigating.
Right,
That's true.
right.
Would it be beneficial to have it? in
More
the breakout?
investigation is needed. We could probably make that be the first.
I wouldn't
By
have,
who?
if you don't know what it is, I wouldn't include it in this.
Maybe it's
Because
important to let people
somebody
know
asks,
that's
then you can-
acknowledge.
No, but it's an
it'll be back.
obvious.
I wouldn't put up something saying we don't know.
The school-age children thing is coming up a lot, so that is an important point to get out, whether it's in the breakout or
Yeah.
here. I think that is here. I just,
So I think you can go, it's difficult or, determining fiscal impacts is challenging. Here's what we do know.
Yeah.
This is the average property tax payment. For non-age restricted PRDs, there's, 0.23 students, per
Right.
units for 75 out of, 85 units.
Right.
And just put some of the things that we do know and
Will the finance committee have an opportunity to?
Well, they've got
comment
time
on all
between
these?
now. I mean, this is
So
really
they've
kicking
been
off.
personally invited through the finance director and the chair of the FinCom.
So can we say the finance committee will be consulted on these changes? Just to
They're-
make it look like, I mean, not to make it look
They're
like,
not gonna
but
have
to acknowledge
anything-
that,
No, but they've
know,
got until town meeting effectively.
that they would,
know.
have the opportunity to provide
Right.
input, which might be useful.
Right,
So
we're
maybe-
seeking.
Yeah, seeking,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, seeking, input from the finance committee.
Yeah.
But it is unlikely that in the next week they're gonna have any kind of
No.
high
so
level.
I think we should just
info, right?
say,
Okay.
I think that we should just say we're seeking that input and then,
Yep. I'm
Or-
adding a section, a sentence, 2 sentences at the top of this, which is after what are the physical impacts to the town? I'm saying more investigation is needed. We're seeking input from the finance committee. And then I'll
Well-
say we have limited data. You know, we have some limited data for non-age restricted PRDs. How about that?
To Kate's point, we can say we're taking a systems approach, which is also language from the plan, you know, by working with the finance committee or not acting independently of, you know, other committees that are gonna have the information.
I think that would work better in a voiceover.
I just, the flow
Yeah.
of this doesn't follow to me, because you have unless this one isn't up to date, on slide number 12, you have what bylaw changes are proposed for PRDs. So you
Yeah.
talk about PRDs there. Then the very next one, you skip to Thoreau Depot.
Well, see, I've
Then
gone
you go
through
to
the
plan-
4 initiatives, basically 10
I
through
know, but, like,
13 is the 4 initiatives.
Because this is just an overview,
Yeah.
you should compact those into a single slide, a single walkthrough, and
I
leave.
think you did though.
No, there is
individual-
one slide, there's slide 9, that is the 4.
No, not that. You have the one that lists out the 4.
Yeah.
And then you go into greater detail on 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
But then you go back and you start to like talk about other things. You talk specifically about the fiscal impact to the town, about non-age restricted PRDs. Like
That's he was
the
trying to
flow
keep
of
it
that-
general still, but we
But
only seem to have
PRD is the only
information.
data that we've got, is for PRDs.
So
So that's
kick
why
it
I was
out of
gonna
the
change
main-
it
So
to
maybe there's
saying,
just a transition.
yeah.
we just take out
well,
the
anything
slide
in general that
entirely.
applies to all four should just maybe come before you go into each one,
uh-huh.
maybe?
Well, except for people that need to know what the initiatives are
Or-
before they kind of have a sense of like, oh, okay, but what are the fiscal
Oh, I
impacts?
see.
So,
Or you could go with.
I mean,
what
and
are
then
the-
there was sewer and septic, which is the other one, before we wrap up to, well,
What about talking about, you know, what are impacts that we're going to consider? And some of them would be fiscal impacts. Some of them would be impacts on sewer and septic.
Yeah.
I like that. So I could sort of introduce the last part here by saying, you know, what are the impacts? Yeah.
Well, here are, you know, the impacts that they're further research
What impacts
and-
need further
and
investigation?
input from other boards and committees, fiscal, sewer, water, school,
Yeah.
and then you can kind of reduce that down to one slide.
I think that might be the,
Yep.
and then the breakout can cover those ratios and stuff for the PRD. Okay.
Oh, we've quoted the long range plan, yeah, that's great.
Okay. So on this, so it was schools, fiscal. What were the other ones? Water, sewer.
Water, sewer, school, fiscal, water, sewer. And those are the three.
Those are the biggies,
those
I
are the
think.
biggies.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And so then I will cut those other slides, or move them out. No, I'll just cut. I'm going to cut the fiscal because there's a drill down slide already for that. I'll have to split the septic and sewer because one relates to accessory dwellings and one relates to 2 families. But this refers to both. This one's for both.
But I think you might be able to just do this in the breakout sessions if people have questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I'll do. And so then basically I'll go from, you know, what needs to be investigated further, and then why should the town support these changes? And that's it.
So all this presentation assumes that people agree about increasing the housing stock. It's
Well,
taken
that's
from-
coming from the comprehensive long-range plan,
Yeah,
so it shouldn't
maybe
be
here
a,
you need to put a couple of bullet points why, because if
that was at the very first slide.
was that clear? I don't know.
Yeah, I thought so. The very first slide.
I agree. That's always people's concerns.
There.
Is why do we need more
Why-
housing?
Yeah, and I see. Yeah,
Smart
That's
growth.
good.
But even the second slide, this one,
Yeah.
it is. I mean, it is very clear visually, but I don't know if people really care about. I mean, yeah, maybe bigger is better. They would think, and I don't know if it. I think we know what the implications are, but maybe it's not explicit enough. I don't know. Maybe we're taking for granted. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it also. I'm just.
Well, it may
Like
be
there's
that
probably
this.
a section of the population that's like, that's great.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
but that's not what our comprehensive long-range plan
Yeah.
has
So maybe-
defined
maybe
as our
move
goals.
To, I don't know.
Yeah.
So I think that's why Kate made the suggestion to kind of beef this first slide up.
Yeah, and I have
directly
now.
correlate to the long range
Long
plan.
Right.
range plan. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's always that question of like, it's easier to build more housing. But if the question is trying to slow down,
Yeah, it's incremental
housing that we
units of
don't
housing
want,
that better match
that's
Concord's
the harder question.
future needs as outlined in Concord's comprehensive long-range plan.
it'd be better if we could change the kind of housing that was built instead of
Right.
adding more of what we
Yeah.
want.
Okay.
Okay.
So then I would go in and say, hey, now let's do these breakouts, and here, and they don't have to be in these particular corners. Or now, actually, I could change the slide if we're going to use the select board room. I'll just carve out a
Yeah, I'll make sure that it's available.
yeah.
It's the same idea though.
Yeah. And then we'll go back with the feedback summary. Okay.
So will one of us each be in charge of like note taking, or how's that gonna work?
Well, that's why I wanted to have a tag team at each corner, because somebody could be
Lead.
facilitating and another person could be note taking.
Okay, because again, for the PRDs, I'll be shocked if we don't have like a packed room full of a lot of opinion.
We'll see.
West
I mean, because it's not a
Something.
particular project that's moving into their neighborhood.
Oh,
It's
yeah, you're
bylaw
right.
changes.
You're
Bylaw
right.
changes. There's only certain nerdy people that like bylaw changes.
And they're always
No,
at town
but-
meeting.
They're always in
Every
town
year.
meeting, Yeah.
Yeah, and
Not
nerdy
nerdy,
is
but
good. I mean,
regular.
nerdy is.
Well, I'm one of them.
in.
I'm one of them.
Yeah, we're not.
Okay, so then, this was the accessory dwelling units content. I think this is the most fleshed out. So basically outlined for people, what can they already do? Because there are that, how many units do we have? And then the next one is, when we have this bylaw, we're also proposing that some would need a special permit. This is back to those ones that might have a negative impact. So what are those things? Then what have other towns done? Okay, then what do we think that would be created as new housing out of this? And then I think that's it. So you could further, whoever's doing this accessory dwelling unit one could, further elaborate on that. Okay, then two-family housing. So this one,
So,
Yeah.
Matt, is the person gonna go through these have these at their breakout session? Is that?
they could either have a handout and just hand it out to people and then just have an open discussion, or they could do a little mini presentation. It's up to you, I think.
If we need to do a handout, you guys would need to print them up.
Yep.
And we'd need to get them to you by Tuesday or when?
Well, it's not till Thursday evening.
I
so-
know.
This is
So
on the
Thursday?
25th.
Thursday morning.
Really?
Thursday morning.
You got other things?
I
Okay,
didn't really notice.
okay, so,
Okay, so then, so looking at two families, so we've got, that question about why residents C, and not the whole town. And then we just had the maps here that we did for walking distance and, how that compares with residence C, because the original concept was put two families within walking distance of village centers, right? So this is how we came up with the residence C. Okay. And then PRD breakout, this is
chart excerpted from the bigger spreadsheet that Elizabeth compiled a couple years ago. This still misses a couple of items, right? It just doesn't have Comerford Road in it, for example. But just the general sense of this is if you look at the percentage of open space, you'll see that, only Milldam Square has less than 33% of the ones that don't have that don't have affordable housing as their primary objective.
I have a question. Were there any trends in terms of open space percentage over the years? Like if you were to reorder this by when these were constructed, would that show a difference in open space or not necessarily?
I don't think necessarily. I mean, again, Concord Road, there was a significant, 28 acres.
That's right here, Black
Open
Horse
space.
Place.
Oh, it is in there. Oh, wow. How did it get in there? Yeah, see, 64%. So it's, in the upper half of those.
I just.
Comerford Road, because you guys talk about it all the time. I've seen the sign for Comerford Road. It looks like it goes back, but then I see
But this is
construction
0%
right along
of the
2A.
scene.
Cause it's.
That's
it's the-
Acton.
Okay, that's what I thought. But,
yeah,
oh,
it's
Comerford
right
Road in
before you get to
Acton?
No,
And then
Comfort-
you go up and the
Okay,
Comfort
so
Road
I'd have
is
to
like a
go-
loop and it comes off of that into a.
But that is the road we're talking about, just,
Yeah.
okay,
Coastal
thank you.
development,
I will
yeah.
drive there another time. I just.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There's actually, I recommend you go back there, park in the parking lot, and walk the trails back there.
Okay.
That's the
You
feature.
haven't walked those trails yet?
And I haven't even been down that street yet.
Oh,
Those
those trails are great. I mean, they connect up with ones that come out on Strawberry Hill
Well,
Road.
because the only thing I've heard is you hear the name of the PRD and then everybody kind of gets quiet. So I wasn't exactly sure how to take that, and we don't have to talk about it now, but okay, I will
All right.
check out the trails.
So
Excellent.
then, thanks to Haley,
Yeah.
this is a highly condensed version.
I did a lot more, by the way, since I sent you guys that.
Okay.
More towns. Or
But
more
basically, I think we wanted to
analysis?
zero in on these two features, which is the amount of open space required, three features, the minimum upland percentage required, and then whether sustainability is required. And as you can see here, we're the lowest percentage of open space.
Can I ask a question of Haley? This is probably we could do this offline. But did we like if I was a person at our table, did we cherry pick surrounding towns that have a higher open space requirement, or did the other towns around us like not have PRDs? Or like what?
Oh.
How did we?
Who else is missing? Acton?
choose-
I pulled Acton. Acton is like 50 or 60%.
Okay, because otherwise
Great,
these
that's
are
not
the
bad.
surrounding towns, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
they are.
So they're all
Because like,
like-
when I first started, I was kind of like, ugh, looking closer to the city, and then I was like, okay, I need to be more fair, and then I was sort of shocked
Guessing Lincoln
to
does
see what
not
I
have-
found.
Yeah,
like
so
mean-
Acton and Lincoln would be the
Maynard.
only ones that we don't see right now.
Yeah, actually, and Framingham's
But
kind
you
of a
think
point
it
off the
differs.
curve because not only are they further away, but they
More
are
urban.
a whole different,
Oh,
profile of a community than.
But
They're
thanks
outside
again, Haley,
Beltway,
for
though.
doing this. This is
But
great.
if you could add Acton and Lincoln to this list, I don't know again if Lincoln even has such a bylaw.
Yeah.
It would be great
Yeah.
because it would just complete the swing. But and maybe we'll finish this discussion, but I think we want to come back to this just with regards to what are we proposing for PRDs. Okay, and then PRD demographics is just the drill down on the data about school age children. So I just, and then the TOD, all I did was I just gave the project deliverables list, and then the district map, so where this is. Additional improvements to the map are welcome. And then
I'll
what's
work on the map.
what's the scope, right? So it's how much money is being earmarked for this and all. It's the next slide, and that's it.
Can you go back to the map for a second? I'm having trouble reading it for some reason.
Is that
It's
the
the-
railroad? Does the purple thing?
Yeah.
The railroad?
Yeah, that's the railroad.
Where's
the
Thoreau
thing-
Street?
The thing that we
Thoreau
were
Street's
just
that
talking
street.
about at the beginning of the meeting is this corner here where the Starbucks is.
This is Sudbury Road.
Yeah.
See the intersection now?
So you got the
And
gas
is that
station in the very
Crosby's, the
corner
big-
there.
The
Space
Dunkin'
in the
Donuts at
back.
the
Yeah.
other corner.
Right here.
there.
Crosby's Market back down there.
CVS.
I'm looking at, okay, that's the railroad. Oh, wait.
The
What's that
this
purple line? Why am I
purple
so
line is
confused?
the railroad.
Oh, it's upside down from where, the way I
Like
think that I
80
want to see
Thoreau's
it.
there.
Okay, sorry, I need to flip it around. Okay, sorry, yep, got it.
Yeah, the north is all
It's
done.
not.
This is just straight a slice out of the GIS.
I'll make a slightly better map.
Yeah, I just
I mean,
With the
Thanks.
satellite.
if I, I live 10 seconds from everything. If I was having trouble orienting myself.
okay.
Great, wow, Matt, that's wonderful.
So, okay. Um,
Thank you for putting all that all together.
Yeah.
And I think the breakout sessions sound good, and that's gonna be, hopefully get us all that information we need to kind of finally prepare for town meeting, you know.
yeah,
I'm hoping that
For
all
our
that stuff
hearings.
comes up. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, when will the hearings be? Roughly.
March.
Okay, thank you.
no.
I just,
February.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're early.
I couldn't remember what month.
And
To
So-
hear about what?
Remember-
Your public hearing is.
For the benefit of new members, you wanna explain that part?
what, the public hearing versus, yeah, so we have a public hearing that's just devoted to the planning board and our stuff. And so we'll go through in kind of greater depth each of our proposed warrant articles. And then at the, and then for town meeting, not all of our warrant articles, hopefully, will have to be presented. Some of them will be on the consent calendar, so, and then the amount of time that we have for each of our articles is tight to present them, which I personally have experienced
In the, in
Overrunning
town
my
meeting
time.
or in the,
in town
Hearing.
meeting. No, in the hearing, you've got time, you can spread out.
It's your public hearing.
Exactly.
You can have as
You
much
could
time
just-
as you want.
okay.
Yep. All right, so now let's talk about actually what it is that we're proposing to town meeting. And I think that, you know, the main open issue is around the PRD bylaw. We had a previous discussion a couple meetings ago where Elizabeth wasn't here, and I think that we missed her terribly. And at that meeting, we had a couple of different kind of tentative conclusions. One was that the language that was there that described the open space was actually pretty good language and the conditions that, you know, it establishes for them. I think that what we were less sure about is, are we, you know, providing enough open space in the PRD? And I actually thought that Haley's work, and wow, you hit the ground running as a new member. I mean, what can I say?
Feel like gold star.
And so, your investigation revealed that, in fact, you know, relative to our peer towns, we're not requiring as much open space. And I think that we have a second goal, which was we want to increase building density on the site so that the site is better used. And by increasing the amount of open space required, I think that we could achieve that goal as well, and, you know, encourage different building types. So I would like us to propose a larger percentage of open space, perhaps the 33% that I see as more common. And I think that what we saw as well from Haley's data is that the 50% of upland, it seems to be kind of standard everywhere except for Framingham. So I think that's okay. We're already at 50%. It's just have more space.
Yeah, I'm like quite shocked at the data of our own PRDs, to be honest with you, to see like how, like, even on few acreage sites that like the average seem to be like 50%.
Yeah,
So like historically, this doesn't seem to have been an issue, but
right.
maybe it's a growing issue. I mean, obviously it will be a growing issue, but I'm just sort of shocked that, like surprised about that disconnect.
Yeah, and Mill Dam Square, the one that was sort of below what would the 33% that we're proposing, was a site that's sort of right in town, you know. So, and even they were able to do 27%. So, I think that 33 sounds reasonable to me.
I mean, the one other thing that I had been observing, and probably at least a third of the PRDs that I went through, was a lot of them have like a minimum lot, like tract size that like a PRD can even qualify for.
Which ours is 1 acre.
Right, most of them are 10 acres.
Yeah.
Or not most, but the ones that had an acreage limitation, it was, or an obvious acreage limitation was like minimum 10 acres, and then at like if the point is conservation of land, presumably you need enough space to actually build some greater density of housing and then have enough room to actually preserve something. So I don't know
Yeah.
if that's the thinking there, but
Well, again, if we could put back up that chart,
Which chart's that?
the one that compares the metrics on the different PRDs in Concord. You know, we just recently recommended a PRD that was less than 4 acres, I think it was, right around 4 acres. And it comes back to me as like, well, do we want to encourage an alternate pattern of development versus a subdivision on a 4 acre lot? And I think we probably would. So you can see, I mean, quite a few of them are less than 10 acres. And all of the affordable ones are.
And I don't know if this was a question outstanding, but like, just for example, 1440 Main Street, do we have their number yet?
No,
The number for
but this
which-
is not about them.
No, I
Yeah.
know. I'm just like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to put that in context with something actually going on, but
Yeah.
So I agree with Matt about 33%.
Well, given that like you're saying, most of them
are hitting that.
are hitting that, what are we buying ourselves by increasing it by
I
that
guess I assumed,
little
Yeah.
amount?
I guess I assumed that as we go forward, it's going to get tighter and tighter. But I think that's wrong.
And 40% would be too aggressive. You know what? I thought that Marcia said, and maybe I took notes, that this kind of got changed when we were trying to encourage the affordable housing element of it, and maybe the open space relaxed. I don't know if I heard that correctly.
Well, there's no open space requirement for the affordable housing ones.
Okay, so those kind of
Yeah.
all right. So
They're
that's- I don't-
exempted.
Yeah.
So
But I mean, even for like encouraging it in the regular ones, I don't know. I guess the original. Let me go back to my question. Is 33%
Right.
enough?
Doing anything for us. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, like I said, I did come across, and I can send this around, like Acton, I'm pretty positive I remember it being like 50 or 60%, and then I came across another one or two that were that high.
Because unless we make it a point to preserve a very large percentage, then what's the impact to reduce the footprint?
Well, I have to say, going from 25 to 33 is a pretty good sized jump.
Right, but nobody's
look
had a
at-
problem with
Yeah,
it.
Yeah, but
it doesn't seem like it would have impacted any of these projects.
Yeah, but I mean, these are probably okay, right? I mean, this issue hasn't come up until we started to see something, you know, below there. So I think that I'm comfortable with a relative, because again, I want to make sure that this becomes still a viable option.
Right.
Okay, and so
I'd like to try 33.
Got it. Right,
You know,
because we
I'd
want,
like to
we
try
still
that.
want to make it an
An
attractive,
attractive option.
Okay.
Yeah, and yet, you know, that it achieves what we want to do for preserving open space.
Particularly, no, the other thing we didn't talk about yet was sustainability, like
Yes,
the other
that's the
ones.
next topic.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah. Well, so, I mean, not everybody has it, but it's great that we saw the low impact development, right, as one of the things. So LID, and then the other one was sustainable or green design. And, you know, it gets back to, okay, quantifying that, you know, specifying, what do we mean by that?
I think Framingham even had some more language that I should have included or I pulled out later that was like referencing to like specific energy efficiency, like Energy Star appliances, and got more specific in that sense. So I could send that language around. I thought that was, you know, not insanely prescriptive, but at least more specific than just try to use sustainability. And
Right, and then it gets back as well to what can we specify that doesn't conflict with the building code. But at least there's the precedent of these other bylaws noting those two issues. So I'd like to see if we can come up with some language for that.
Forgive me, but are we confirming what Elizabeth should do to draft something up, or is something already drafted? Did I miss that?
No, we don't have anything drafted yet.
Okay.
I feel like we need a clean numbered list of things that are
Yeah.
going to be added and or changed for the PRD.
Well, so that list right now would be to change the open space requirement from 25% to 33%.
Yep.
And to require low impact development and sustainable building.
Well, that's too general. I mean, that would have to be more specific.
Well, except for that, the other bylaws that we've seen from peer towns, that's what they say.
And aren't
They
we-
don't say
and we're
anything
gonna
more
have site
specific.
plan review where we do have criteria.
Well, and that,
right?
the site plan review, that's already been, well, no, that hasn't been drafted up yet.
That's,
It's already been discussed.
all that is changing,
A yes to, or no to
a
a
no
yes.
to a, NR to R
Yes.
on the, table of uses.
Well, that's the
For
site plan review.
Yes, for
But then for us being the authority, the permitting authority for PRDs,
that is, that's
also a
one-
real
that's-
easy.
That's a very easy, zoning bylaw
Yep.
amendment to draft.
So, but so it's 4 things now that we're talking about doing for PRDs, right? So I will edit, by the way, that slide in the overview to be more, those 4 things.
So how is the 33% again? Where did it come from? Just ran like
If you look at the chart,
Greater
there's
than
another
20.
chart here with the peer towns numbers. I think it might even be the next one. Yeah, there you go. You see the open
So-
space requirements? So there's
Lexington is
30, 33, 35. So I thought 33 looked good. It could be, we could say 35. I'd be just as fine with 35. Who do you want to be most like? Sudbury? Carlisle only needs 30%. That's kind of surprising given how rural that town is, but
so they
Based
had,
on
I
the
think,
PRDs they have.
but you know, in that range, it seems like
So for the next time, I can draft a PR, warrant article, for those 3 things.
Yeah.
So the warrant article itself will, change the open space requirement to 33%. It'll change from the zoning board of appeals to the planning board as the special permit granting authority. And it'll have the principal table of uses, which will change the NR not required for site plan review to required.
Sounds really good.
What about the low impact development?
So
You wanna wait on that? Or that's gonna be in the site plan review?
that's the new criteria under site plan review regarding
Okay.
sustainability.
so it'll be called out specifically.
It already is.
It already is.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's the newest criteria that
okay.
was recently adopted.
Okay.
yeah. But do we need something special for low impact development, which is more of a
stormwater related.
I'll take a look. And,
I know Framingham had like a specific paragraph on like stormwater and low impact, like, so good to see that language.
Yeah, I think we can. I think there might be some room to grow on that.
Well,
Yeah, I mean,
And so I'd be interested. I think that's
ultimately, yeah, your room to grow
yeah.
is a project that hasn't been taken up since I've been here, and that's developing rules and regs for site plan review,
Oh.
which the board has never had,
Right. Which
even
is
though the zoning bylaw
which is
references it.
pretty key.
Wait. I'm too tired.
The-
There's no
the
rules and
zone-
regulations.
So there are no rules and regulations for site plan approval.
Okay, you want me to write them?
Please.
Sure.
Second.
If you want to draft something, I mean,
I don't
It seems
quite get
like
what that
there's
means.
it seems like we're missing guidance.
well, that's what
Materials.
that's what rules and regs would.
No, I know, but
It's
I
like
know.
really
So I'm just
specific.
saying,
But-
like that.
but you have
to
to
me,
understand
like,
when you draft rules and regs, it's not one particular item. So now you're talking about in a parking lot more than 10 spaces, you're gonna have a 5-foot island. You're
Specific
talking about,
detail.
it gets down to very specific details.
I'm not reading that. Or okay. I guess I have a feeling that we're gonna come out of this session between prepping for the session next Thursday and then gathering input on PRD. I think we'll be able to do something more with energy efficiency, LID, and trying to steer these towards like something that's a little more designed and more really what we would expect out of a kind of
So the problem
something that's out
is
front environmentally.
I understand the direction you want to go,
Yeah.
but many times that specific direction is not something that should be in a zoning bylaw. It requires a 2/3 vote of town meeting to change, and so the zoning bylaw, that's why your site plan rules, your site plan criteria that's in the zoning bylaw is not down to the very specifics of what does it mean when, some of the criteria, how it's worded, it's kind of at the higher level and it doesn't get into those very detailed specifics in the zoning bylaw, because that's a document that if you were to reference something and you just, something new came along and somebody says, well, I'm meeting, this specific LID, measure that you said.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in 2 years, something better can come along and the board has, less leverage. So the zoning bylaw should not be specifics down to how a site plan should be developed.
Yeah.
And that's my only caution.
Yeah.
Like what I saw in some other PRD languages is like a reference to like either a state level like standard or something like that that is changing in and of itself, and so you don't have to worry about how that changes over time.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, and I worked on the tree preservation bylaw rules and regs, and so I saw how, there's probably 4 or 5 times the amount of language in the rules and regs, and it just says, here's what the application looks like, what you have to provide in your plan, and, all that stuff. Here's how we're going to collect the money, all those things that don't belong in the bylaw itself.
But I did see that a lot in the other towns' bylaws, I'll be honest.
Well, some of them probably went a little far on that, yeah.
But when I referenced back to ours, I was like,
We
whoa.
don't say much.
Yeah.
Wait,
I was like,
are you
wait a
looking at
second.
bylaws and not
Maybe
rules
that's
and regs?
on purpose. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll keep thinking about it. Anyways.
Okay, so here's what I'm writing. That what bylaw changes are proposed for PRDs. I'm saying increase the required open space from 25% to 33%. Require site plan review, including sustainability criteria. Mandate low impact development and green building design, and make the planning board the permitting authority.
I guess, is there anything we need to do to address like the definition of diversity or affordability of the units? I mean, I get there's a benefit to being more vague on that, but I know there's actually a big undertaking in Lexington right now because there's been a lot of like resident concern over a recent PRD that just outraged everybody, and now there's like a full-fledged like revision and effort going on to update their bylaw because people were so upset about the lack of affordable housing coming out of PRDs, and that's in the works. So there's nothing to draw from in that sense, but
So this has been the constant discussion since PRDs were first established. It's what is the goal?
Mhm.
Is the goal open space or is the goal affordable housing?
The answer is
they're-
both.
They're,
or it
they're
depends.
they're very difficult to have meaningful levels of both in a project. So, because
Yeah.
it drives up costs in different directions. So, you have more affordable housing, you're gonna be seeking, increased density.
Right.
If you have more open space, then you have fewer units and there's gonna be a trade-off
more
as far as the cost. So it's difficult.
Unless we change the housing typology. Right.
So that
Which
throws
is another
in,
thing.
that throws in the third element, that, throws all of the discussions
Yeah.
off, and that's this, inherent desire that, well, we want open space, we want density, we want affordable housing, but we want it to look like our current neighborhood.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And all of those elements do not go together. You
Right.
cannot have, you cannot have all of that in most cases.
Okay. I think that concludes that discussion. So we're just going to draw up some language on these new PRD things. I've updated the presentation to reflect. The PRD breakout's going to probably need a little more work.
Before we move on from bylaws.
Yeah.
Well, no, we have more bylaw.
Oh, we're just moving on from that one.
Okay. What
Okay.
else do we?
So, Kristen did send me some additional wording for, the, front yard and, fences and walls bylaw. Also additional wording for, the accessory dwelling. But we can put these on for the next meeting for everybody just to read and accept what that wording is for the
Was-
explanation.
Was my understanding of the bylaws correct?
Yes.
Okay. It is two-family and accessory dwelling in that same,
They're both
Section.
under
Right.
422.
okay, so
Yeah.
we are addressing both in the explanation, correct?
Well, there's two separate warrant articles.
There are.
Yeah.
But,
The same explanation pretty
The
much.
same explanation
works for both.
Works for both in most cases.
Yeah.
are we making, one, the change to one section of the bylaw that will encapsulate both?
So there's 4221,
Right, okay,
which the change to that will address two families in residence C.
okay,
And then the board is deleting 4222 and adding a new 422, which addresses the accessory dwelling units.
okay, so okay, because when I was
But
reading
they
that,
both fall under the parent heading of 422.
okay. So I just wanted to make sure what I wrote was applicable to what it was supposed to be applicable.
So I will put the drafts, revised drafts on the website for the next meeting for the board to review and read and approve, if that's
Yeah.
what you wanna do.
If that's okay.
Oh, that's fine.
And then, the one that was actually in your packet that was new is the warrant article, for the grocery store in the
Oh,
West
yeah.
Concord Industrial.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Which there were a couple other items that were discussed at your last meeting with WCAG.
Yeah,
And
well,
I didn't
you
get a
you
clear-
weren't real enthusiastic about some of them.
I know.
So about like artist live workspace. So did you determine that artist live workspace is combined residence business, that one unit can be both live and workspace?
And I haven't, the building commissioner hasn't confirmed the
Okay.
building code
So
concept of that yet.
that's one that we may still need to do something if that is the case. And then craft shop, I mean, I know that, in our discussion with the West Concord Advisory Committee, that, the concern was, well, other towns spent a whole lot of time kind of coming up with this distinct, maker slash artist, use. And for us to just sort of dismiss it seemed pretty summary, given that other towns seem to, and cities seem to spend a lot of time trying to craft that. So that was just the sort of concern that I heard back on it. But then, yeah, and the grocery, and then the other thing, of course, that was proposed was the whole business of a hotel, right? But I
there was
personally
no-
wasn't enthusiastic
no-
about
There's
doing
no
that.
clear direction on whether the board, yes, you wanna go forward with a
Right.
bylaw amendment for artist space different than a craft, the current definition, or
I
whether you
think
want a
at the
bylaw
meeting
amendment
that
for a
came
hotel,
up,
or-
you were so adamantly opposed to it.
I don't have,
Concern me.
I don't have a dog in this fight. I tell you, if this is what I can tell you what the, the unintended consequences that you have to think about.
Yeah.
So the West Concord Industrial District is not just Beharrell Street.
Sure.
And a lot of people forget that the end of Winthrop,
Yeah.
that's all that
Yeah.
same zoning district. I don't,
Well, and that's where actually I still have lingering concerns on the grocery, but
Yeah, me too.
I mean, I don't think we made
Let's
a
go
decision,
grocery.
right? We
That's-
knew
No.
what, so.
she drafted something.
Yeah, thank you to kind of compel us
Yeah.
to do something, I think is important.
I'm anti putting grocery in industrial. I think we should rezone it if we need to, but I don't think we should put that in industrial zone. Sorry, did I?
No, well, I think
Maybe
that
let's
that's
go
a
through let's go through the
legitimate.
easy stuff.
Yeah.
This should be one.
I mean,
It was-
what's the sense of the other members of the board on this?
On the grocery.
Yeah.
On the grocery.
I don't know if I fully understand implications.
Well, it's this small district that's right behind the business district of West Concord
We have a map.
Village. There's a map that can come up, but and it is, so it has that Brookside Square development that went in a
Yeah,
few years
okay.
ago. And we just saw this proposal for something that's in the business district, not the industrial district, for the 13B Commonwealth.
yeah.
Right, and that would be retail space. And so the uses that are in and there has been a objective for the Western Concord Industrial Advisory Committee to look at the uses within that industrial district and to see whether there should be some refinement. So I think that the term used was streamlined. But what came out of the discussion and public surveys and so on, and certainly a sense of the West Concord Advisory Committee members, was an interest in providing more opportunities for a grocery store, kind of practical retail in the village. And so I think part of the idea is to provide more opportunities for that to happen. Now, I think that the opposing view is one that, well, the industrial district is, a district that's supposed to be for people to work and to then go and visit the retail stores that are in the business district that's immediately adjacent. So creating more sort of business-like uses, like a grocery store there, kind of could displace other potential uses, including the fabricator / artisan type of use.
Yeah.
So that was the those are I'm trying to kind of, I mean, we have a member of the West Concord Advisory Committee here who could potentially speak to that, Susan.
Hi, I'm Susan.
Yeah.
And you're characterizing our discussion very well, actually, in terms of that the West Concord Advisory Committee is interested in making it possible for a grocery store to locate in the industrial district. I think the feeling is that there's quite a lot of industrial space / buildings, and there's not a whole lot of heavy manufacturing happening in West Concord anymore, and so it would make sense to perhaps allow some more flexibility for what can locate there. And then also there is quite an interest to have the artist live workspaces be available so that artists aren't essentially, like paying twice to have a place to live and then a studio location if their home isn't big enough to also house a studio.
So what is it obvious on here where the industrial district?
So I think
Yeah, so
it's that hashed line.
It's this hash line.
So it sounds like you want to rezone
And
part of the
this-
industrial, like you think
and
the
over there.
industrial
What's
district
just
is too
adding a
big.
use is.
No, I know, but I
Right.
mean, I think the right way to do that would be if you're saying we have too much industrial space and we need more space for commercial uses, then that's rezoning.
Make it a business district, you're saying.
Yeah, change.
What-
I mean,
or
I'm not
part
saying
of
the
it.
entire, exactly. I think that's more coherent action in terms of planning than like that, incrementally adding in a use. Usually industrial zoned areas are very purposefully maintained for industrial purposes.
And, indeed, if you look over on Bradford Street on the far side of Commonwealth, it is all uses that are professional office, craft shop, and industrial uses. So that's happening over there. On the other side, you're getting more kind of consumer services like the health clubs, the physician's office, and so it's kind of changed a little bit the character of that area from what it used to be.
So, but like the new building that I always can never remember the name. The guy
Brookside Square.
Brookside Square. That's technically in an industrial.
That's in the industrial district, and it's a combined
But they have
industrial residential, which is allowed.
It is okay.
By special permit.
Right. And then you can see further up in that top of the triangle point, that's up beyond Winthrop Street, there's, industrial there.
Wasn't adding grocery, wouldn't it have been by special permit as well?
It would, I think that was the proposal, was do it by special permit, yeah.
So then you don't need to rezone. They have to go through special permit process. You would have, not you specifically, but there would be a final say. It's not as if it'd be a.
No, it's not by special permit.
would
It
not-
isn't being proposed, it wouldn't,
I thought that was the.
I thought that was the idea.
That's
I-
not what.
Susan, is that what you recall? I think that we were gonna, propose it by special, they were suggesting.
I don't think, I don't
Well,
think
assuming that it were to be added as
Okay,
Where's the
granted
hotel
by special permit,
all right, so like, that's an easy change.
Yeah.
that would give the flexibility to say yay or nay. It's like you're not,
On what basis, can you explain, like, on what basis would you say nay
I
to a
didn't
special
write down
permit?
special permit for grocery store. I
any,
wrote it for hotel.
any number,
Could have missed.
depending on what they're gonna build, where it's gonna be constructed, any of the other limiting factors of
Well,
area.
it has to be less than 10,000 square feet.
That's just in the bylaw. Well, that would also, we have to extend that to industrial district, right? Because right now in the bylaw, 10,000 is the limit in the business
Village.
district. Yeah, village business
What is
district.
saying here what's allowed in industrial?
Yeah, I wish I had that in front of me.
Yeah, so there's a table of uses.
There is a table.
Let's see.
What's the question?
What's allowed now by special permit in the industrial zone district?
What are all of
Other
the uses
uses?
allowed?
Hold on.
Other
It's
use,
like a
yeah,
top.
there's a, no, but I mean, the ones that are special permit, there's a relatively small number.
Wait,
Residential is
That's
one.
the table.
No, only combined residential industrial.
Here.
Where's that? It's dimensional.
But like, so Orange Theory is considered like an
It's considered a, was it personal services, which is allowed.
So French Theory, is that like,
Elizabeth,
facility
what section is
or
the
that like
table?
exercise?
No, it's exercise.
It's on page 24.
Thank you. There you go. So, see, and there might be another page too. but-
Yeah, and so you can see the
So
WCI
right.
column is the West
Oh, yeah,
Concord
West
industrial
Concord
column.
industrial.
I mean, I think that's, Kate's point is a good one, that if we don't really have industrial uses anymore, then is it worth having a separately categorized district? I mean, because I regarding the recommendations from the West Concord Advisory Committee, I feel like they spent time doing that. So for them to present recommendations and then for me to say, no, I don't think those are the right ones, right uses, I think I don't want to do that because they spent time thinking about that. But it is important to think about why the zoning districts were classified as they were and if that's still appropriate.
Well, like 3040 Beharrell Street is like a big woodworking operation right now.
Okay.
And then there's like an environmental business in the building back behind there. I mean, there still are businesses back there. I mean, there are various businesses, professional offices. There's a software company in Brookside Square. There's,
Right.
Lots of
Which-
other kinds of businesses.
The woodworking, so the woodworking shop would be considered a craft shop.
Really?
I think.
Because it's a large scale
I think it, but if you read the
operation that's
definition,
building stuff.
Furniture.
For,
yeah,
well, it's building
cabinets
stuff
and-
like
But there's
it's
probably not a
counter
scale.
kitchen counters and stuff
Yeah.
that
But
are
there's
installed in
probably-
a house.
Artisanal.
It's fancy. They're fancy. They are fancy, but they're
And so the
custom built-ins.
wasn't the issue
Oh, okay, this just says craftsman.
well, wasn't an issue the affordability of space. And so perhaps thinking that a use that was considered industrial might not generate enough to afford the space in the zone, and a use that was more some of these other ones would be able to afford rent or in the zone. Like I feel like
leading
that was
to the
an impetus,
displacement, the further displacement of those other
Yeah.
uses.
Right.
So that's why typically people, set these aside. Now, the most recent report that we have that regards all this stuff is the West Concord Junction Task Force report that talks about recommendations, and there were two recommendations in their report that related to zoning. And one was about artist live workspace, making sure artist live workspace is there. And then the other is in both the business and industrial districts, making sure studios can be there. And so that's what led to this discussion about, okay, is combined residence business
And we're still
effectively
investigating
an
that.
artist live workspace? And then
Okay.
the second thing is a craft shop effectively useful across both industrial and business as an artist studio / fabricators, makerspace type of thing.
And so do we have what we need to be able to answer those questions? I know Elizabeth is researching with the building commissioner or something that we thought was a building
The
code.
first of those
Right.
two questions, yeah.
And so once we have the answers to those two questions, we should then be able to make a recommendation about uses, correct?
Yeah, though it sounds like we already are, I mean, the one that we need to talk about right now, or that we seem to have enough information to decide on, is the grocery store question.
So, question, the formula business bylaw that we all got notice of approval from the AG, does not apply within the industrial
It
district?
does,
It does?
yes.
Call that out.
Yep. It's across the West Concord business, West Concord Village Business and West Concord Industrial. Those collectively, the number applies to those three districts.
So then I think we're again giving ourselves an out because any grocery store of a size that would go in there is gonna fall under that.
Well, you look at Concord Market that opened,
I thought the way people were talking about
That's
something
about
bigger
this-
than that.
Where? I didn't
I mean,
know
Concord
space.
Market is, I think, 8,000 square feet, somewhere in that,
In the actual footprint or?
no, 8,000 square feet, or, of space.
Yeah, I mean, they constructed the building and
Yeah.
stuff for,
Well, it's got an upstairs.
for, oh, well, I guess I'm thinking for the grocery part, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
But it, yeah,
I'm
so,
also-
so we're
I'm just
talking about
thinking
some,
like a place like a Brothers, which is just a rebranding of Roche Brothers, or a mini Whole Foods. All of those that would have the money to go in and do that are gonna fall under the formula business bylaw.
yeah, but we're not at
That
the
gives you
limit.
the
That's
out
helpful. I
that
was
you
thinking
want.
Yeah, we're not at
Yeah.
the limit of
So that
formula
could still go in.
businesses, it's,
So
yeah.
what is it that, can you describe maybe, what is it that's just, what, just say a little bit more about what exactly they want and why they want to put it back there? What,
Oh,
Is it
the
they-
grocery store?
Susan,
Oh, sorry.
yeah, like I want to go and buy this kind of thing.
So I think the idea of West Concord Village is that you can have a very walkable existence if you are a person who's say like commuting, using the train, back and forth to your job and walking around on weekends, being able to pick up your groceries at a store besides just Deborah's, because Deborah's has great specialty foods, but like more things that you might want. It just gives the village that sense of, I don't know, completeness where you can not have to get in your car and not have to drive, a mile or whatever it is to pick up some things that you need.
So it's like not a real grocery store, but
Once
it's
upon a
also
time,
not so
there was
specialty.
the West Concord
Oh,
Supermarket.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay.
So I
I just double checked, cause, I can't remember things.
Join the club.
I know, right?
But the formula business does not extend to the West Concord
Okay.
Industrial.
I didn't
It
think
is
it
only the
did.
village and the business.
Oh, okay. So now we're back.
Ah,
well, she just
I
checked.
just double checked.
Yeah, because I was looking
Yeah.
here and I didn't see it here, and I was
Nope,
like,
it's West Concord Village and West Concord
we-
Business.
yeah, those are the
I
only two
thought I-
listed here.
I don't see why you probably would have at the time put
oh, that's
industrial in
right.
there.
We said it was actually problematic for an industrial district to do that. That's right. I'm sorry.
Because if that was the case, Orange Theory would
Would
not
be, yes, right.
space.
Okay.
Well, it'd be
Or
a-
they would have
would
I'm
be
sorry.
counted in the
I was
limit.
wrong. Videotape, I was wrong.
No.
Yeah.
Alright, well,
So, okay.
should we do like a straw poll? I think maybe I'm the only, kind of the only one against it, am
I'm not enthusiastic,
I? Okay.
but
You wanna wait?
my property is also in the industrial district, so I think I should probably just sit out.
How did they let your property get it?
It's just the backyard
That's right. Okay.
Where are you going?
on Winthrop Street.
Beautiful. Okay.
Well, like realistically, I love that. That it
Okay,
seems
so-
to be
I mean,
open
and
as
by the
well.
way, I can technically deliberate on a zoning district because it's a district, it's not me.
You just don't want to have to decide.
It's just,
I mean, I find the argument very compelling, especially in line with what we're trying to do and make things more walkable. It's hard to envision, what could happen that we don't want to happen as a result.
And sorry, to be clear, this would still be through special permit, is that what we're?
Yes.
Yeah.
So then that kind of takes care of it.
Well, no, I think what we don't want to happen is to have like commercial type uses displacing industrial uses in an industrial district. I think if the intent is to make it more commercial, then we should rezone it.
I feel like that's a distinction without difference.
Well,
At that point, you're just
Isn't it?
saying,
Why?
well, either you don't want that industrial space to be displaced, or you want it to be available under special permit for the occasion that something comes up that you want to allow for it. But if you're just saying, we're gonna cut out sections of district to be another district, you're still reducing the
Well, you-
industrial district.
You wouldn't do that, your option would be to expand the,
West Concord
West
Village
Con-
Business
Concord
District to
Village
include that
District.
area. I mean, and I said I wasn't
no
gonna
longer
weigh in on this,
industrial
but
district.
I have to say, I like Kate's approach because I think there is something distinctly different about that point up there at the top to this point down here in the bottom. And in other words, what we're trying to say is what would be appropriate down in this corner of the district is different from what would be appropriate up there. And that implies that this isn't really a district anymore. It's kind of split. And that maybe your approach, which would be to, you know, amend the business district boundaries to include that, which is, you know, facing the depot and all that stuff, that, you know, that might be a practical solution.
which is not something you could do between now and the time the warrant closes.
Well, yeah, and this is, I don't think that the West Concord Advisory Committee's issue is like, you know, urgent, has to happen right away. It's really about, you know, this direction. I mean, the master plan was back in 2010.
Well, what seems interesting to me is like the allowed uses under the industrial district are way broader than what's allowed under the commercial district.
Yeah, I think that one aspect of industrial, besides being, you know, cogs turning, is it's cheap. So things that, you know, require space that's usually not expensive, those uses tend to be in an industrial district.
Right, but to your point, like everything up to basically the river is like probably should be.
It's hard industrial.
Yeah. Well,
Although there's physician offices, you know, over there at the end of Winthrop Street. There's also a center for doing dialysis.
Mhm.
Down there.
This is why we didn't decide anything last time either, so. At some point, we're gonna have to,
Fish or cut bait.
right,
I mean, I guess like from my
Right.
perspective, just to that point though, like there's so many other things are already permitted in the industrial district that like to add a
What's
grocery
one
store
more?
doesn't seem
it's funny,
Yeah.
It's-
like
I-
like literally a parking facility is already allowed.
in an industrial,
Yeah, well, that seems okay. So parking seems different than commerce to me. I mean, it's like supportive of.
Yeah, it's not a retail use. It's not a high street use.
what's this building? Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, I'm still disoriented
That's
here.
Winthrop Street.
This one,
That's not Winthrop Street.
this is Winthrop right here.
Oh,
Where are you
The long
looking
that's
at?
skinny one?
Winthrop Street,
Concord Foreign Motors.
shows,
Oh, wow, that's interesting. Yeah, no, this is Prism, this is the high-tech company that's back there, yeah,
Back here.
so funny.
yeah. I had never seen this going around like that.
I didn't know it could, does it?
Maybe that's the way the right-of-way is, but,
But the road stops it, right?
yeah, there's a
That's what I
fence, you can't go through there.
Where are we?
I was just
There's a
looking,
picture of there's
it
a,
looked like it.
it's at Google Maps. Don't believe everything you see on Google
It's-
Maps.
But I mean, until you said that, I didn't even realize that was on. So, but do you take Winthrop Street to get to the dialysis clinic or?
Yeah, you do.
So,
That's
yeah,
the only
I
way to
didn't
get
realize
there,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Nor did I have theirs, so
So how would the board like to proceed?
the board would like someone else to make this decision. That's what it seems like.
Well, I mean, by the way, technically, could the West Concord Advisory Committee present this article at town meeting? As a subcommittee of the planning board?
I
I think
believe
there is
so.
a
I think-
precedent for
I think
this.
the planning board has to put forth the warrant article, but I believe that the planning board
Yeah,
can-
but even if they did present it, it would be bad form for them to be presenting it if we didn't have
Correct. Because the board does need to make their recommendation.
Right.
Is required to make their recommendation to town meeting.
So straw poll.
I like the idea of grocery, whether, and perhaps change of use is more straightforward than rezoning, but it might not be the most appropriate.
Haley?
I'm in favor.
Alan?
Switch to special permit.
He likes the special permit option.
Yeah, I like special permit, to be clear.
Okay. We know where you stand. I know where I stand, kind of ambivalent. I'd love to walk to the reincarnation of the West Concord Supermarket.
So what we'll need,
But
so what we'll need
no, I
to
don't. I
happen.
go to Denver's all the time.
Not anymore.
No.
And then that is,
You never
agree with you,
know.
that's gonna be a
By the way,
consequence that.
you never know that could end up being Denver's. It could be, nobody can predict these things. It's not what we're zoning around.
So
Um,
at
Okay, good.
this
Well,
time,
that's
if there's a board member other than Matt and Kate who would like to work with just one member of West Concord Advisory Committee to develop an explanation. Anyone?
Anybody else who is a contact person?
Okay.
And is there one person on WCAG who's kind of more handling?
I would say probably, Pete or Tim. Yeah. What do you think?
So I'll
Either one,
just have,
yeah, fine.
yeah, I'll have you probably reach out to Pete because he's the current chair.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'll ask you, and to work with Haley. Yep. Okay. So, now, are we ready to move on to minutes? Okay. So starting with, and we just have two sets to look at, right? The 10th and the 24th. We don't have October 22nd yet.
Alright, Nancy gave me both sets, and here they are, okay.
Okay, and I had submitted a comment last week, which was, there's a place where I say that the
Are we on September 10th?
September 10th, sorry, yeah, that the numbers in the plan didn't make sense to me. But what I meant to say is that and what I think I said, because I looked back at the video, and by the way, there's cool, like, full transcript in addition to the video, it's really quite complete. It was that the numbers that were cited in the public comment didn't make sense to me, and then what I asked was the applicant to restate, what they saw were the numbers for cutting of trees and then the replacement of trees.
So this is under the discussion for 430 Old Bedford PRD.
The Old
the
Bedford
10th.
Road purity, yeah. So that was the comment that I had.
And I think that's on page 3.
Yeah, and I sent it via email, so I think there's a proposed wording. Any other comments on September 10th?
We received the letter.
Yes, there was a letter suggesting a bunch of edits. And I'd say that, from my perspective, that, we do have a full video record of the thing with the transcript. And so, we don't need a blow-by-blow account of everything that we say. And so, when I looked through those comments, I thought that there was one area that probably, was worth maybe making a change, which wasn't, which was still not really stated right in the letter. It was saying that we missed a vote, but I mean, we did, express our
each member's opinion about what we should do with that PRD at that meeting. So I think we need to at least, acknowledge that in the minutes somehow.
So there was no formal vote.
There was no
taken.
vote taken, so that was what was wrong
Burton
with that.
Flint commented that he was in support of recommending approval for the PRD. And then each board member indicated their
Yeah.
position
Yeah,
Okay.
of being in support. There was no formal motion, there was no second, there was no vote. So I think Nancy went back and
yeah.
listened and watched the tape a third time, and I think, Matt, you have the paper where I
Yeah,
gave you.
where the actual transcript is.
Well, she made, I think she wrote something on that piece of paper I gave you.
And the reason that's important is because, so I know what the reason that's an important distinction.
It's not a.
It's just accuracy.
It's just accuracy. There's
Well, and
no-
also it was to direct Elizabeth to write up the report, with that, with the recommendation,
Okay.
right? Because, she needed direction of, well, were we recommending approval or weren't we
Got
gonna
it.
recommend approval?
In order to draft
Right, in order to draft the,
the
So do you have
recommendation.
that piece of paper I gave you?
yeah.
So what reads in the minute is Mr. Flint said that he was in favor of recommending that the zoning board of appeals approval of the revised
So I
four-unit
said,
plan.
yeah, can we get a sense of the board so Elizabeth can write this up and then? So, Burton says, I would vote in favor of the proposal and make a recommendation to the zoning board of appeals to approve the special permit request. That'd be my position. And beyond the things already covered in this report, I wouldn't have any further requirements. Nathan says, I'd vote in favor, said Kristen. Alan nodded, indicating his agreement, and then I said, okay, I think we're unanimous on that. Okay, but then, I think that making some indication in the minutes, is it already indicated in the
No,
minutes
it's
that
not.
we did that? So
Well,
I
what's
think we
that?
need to make
Yes.
some
It
indication.
says Mr. Flint said that he was in favor of recommending the
Right.
zoning board of appeals approval of the four-unit plan for the proposed PRD, consistent with the town planner's report and subject to review of the draft recommendation.
Okay,
For the board's
all
review of the
other
next
members
meeting.
indicated they were in
All
favor,
right.
then we're all set.
Alright,
Then that's fine.
okay.
And then the other comments, there was stuff about, spoken opposition to the project versus to trees being taken, but we have a convention that's speaking in opposition, that's just the way that statements are made, it's either favor or opposition, so I don't see any reason for other changes, so, at least that's my view, if others have other opinions. Okay, then, we just had that one edit.
Yep.
Okay, so then, do you have a motion to accept the minutes as amended?
I need to accept the minutes of
September
September
10th.
10th as amended.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All right, all in favor? Okay. Now, minutes of September 24th. Any edits, changes? I was okay with it. All right, motion on that one? Anybody?
I move that we accept the minutes for September 24th as written.
Okay,
Second.
all right, all in favor? All right, so got the minutes done. Liaison reports and staff updates. Anybody got any meetings?
I did.
Yeah,
I went to the comprehensive sustainable and energy committee because they happen to have one on a Thursday and not on a Tuesday. And it was also interesting because they were talking about the model home of Concord, and I didn't know if they were, but anyway, that was more
the model home.
right.
Yeah.
Well, and so that piqued my interest. But basically, I think what they're trying to do is encourage people to adopt energy efficient practices and some things now. So they were trying to say, this is what your home could look like. But related to us, it's just more about how they're going to be working with the larger group, the climate action group. But this was more of, how can we engage Concord citizens and using energy wisely and things like that. But they did talk about the library as well, and that they were going to kind of write a letter to the folks about trying to,
Raise the bar.
yes.
Would they have any suggestions on PRD?
Oh, I guess that was the other thing, not necessarily about PRDs, but they did have questions about transit and Crosstown Connect. So I think, you and Kate will kind of liaise with whoever was in on that, so. But so all stuff that we were talking about in terms of, lower impact and walkable, but just kind of a different perspective and certainly could be the education arm of, all of these efforts that we do. But no, nothing about parity, but I wasn't there to ask them necessarily either, I was kind of just listening in.
Yeah, I guess I'm wondering if they're a potential source of ideas.
Probably a bit more the climate action side, which Nathan, I guess when you can go, are there meetings on Tuesdays also?
The meetings are on Wednesdays, I get them online. Okay.
I attended the West Concord Advisory Committee meeting, and so we already kind of heard a little bit, but the other piece was that the developer went and presented the 13B Commonwealth proposal back to the advisory committee. So got a number of comments, and we will expect to receive some input now from the committee on just the conformance to the guidelines and just their general recommendation as input to our special permit process eventually. We assume.
I did have one other thing, sorry, which I think you knew. Your sustainability checklist that you got from Durham.
Yeah.
From Kate, and that Kate is working on that, so.
Yeah, well, I was just wondering if we got anything back yet. No.
Okay, so that,
But I'll follow up with her.
Okay.
that's all she said, is she was working on the Concord version of that
Yeah.
checklist.
Okay.
I just want to say that I did not go to the HATS meeting last month because I couldn't, and the next one is on Thursday coming up where we have our workshops. But I will be sure to attend the one in December.
And we don't have a liaison report from Burton because he's currently at it. Yeah. Any other items? Anything from staff?
No. You
No?
guys,
We're just keeping you so busy you don't get a chance to look at anything else. Okay. Then it's time to open for public comment. Any comments from the field here? Yes?
Hi, Susan Bates, Concord Green. I just wanted to ask about the, publicizing the hearing and wondered if you could get it on the flashy thingies.
The
Those
flashy
flashy
things.
signs in town that they put different notices on when
Like
there's
when
a,
they close the road or the.
yeah, close the road. and-
Wow,
But
is
there's
that
Right
like
on
also,
Public
Main,
Works?
right on Main Street.
there's one on Main Street and there's, I think, one in West Concord. I know there's one on Main Street.
Wow.
And I don't know if it fits within their
I-
guidelines.
I sincerely doubt that, we will be allowed to use the police department's message board signs for.
Okay.
Oh, it's an interesting concept. I mean,
Well,
also,
I can tell
we're
you
looking for,
Currently, two of them are deployed for Cambridge Turnpike,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah, and one was up in West Concord this weekend for
Oh, the closing.
the closing of the crossing.
Yeah.
I was just thinking if it didn't get into the paper this week and it got in on the day of the hearing, that Was
Well,
there any
it's
other
not a
way to
hearing.
publicize?
So
I
I
mean-
wanna make sure it's not
Forum.
a hearing, it's
No.
just a public forum.
Public
Forum.
forum, yeah, but still, hopefully we're in time for the paper.
And it's also gone to League of Women Voters, all, the different boards and committees, senior management team.
I asked Pete if he, on the West Concord Advisory Committee, if he could put it out on their page on Facebook as well as Nextdoor. So he's, so, I don't know. He had suggested Nextdoor. Why not? Any other public comment? Yes.
I just wanted to comment. So Susan Wodizenic, 392 Border Road, was speaking for myself, not for WCAC here. But I just wanted to mention on the topic of the PRDs and their sustainability requirements, I just would say the Massachusetts building code in many cases is much more lax than what you can attain through net zero building or through passive house. And I would encourage us to look at kind of what the state of the art is in terms of creating tightly built structures that don't require a lot of input to heat and cool and that can be powered by solar such that the load on the grid here is lessened and that helps us meet our greenhouse gas reduction goals. Because if you're building new construction, why not make it to the best standard you can versus just accepting the old standards that now we're all grappling with in our older homes.
All right, then I think we're ready to adjourn for tonight. Thanks very much.